What happens when the locks on your own front door turn against you? How does it feel to dial your husband, ready with another lie, only to find he's finished waiting and your things are already boxed? Can anyone really call it a joke when the punchline is your own name, taped to a stack of mail on the stoop? I'm Kenia Hartley, 33 years old, and I used to think I was clever. I used to think I could manage everyone's emotions like spreadsheets at my HR job. I thought wrong. It started at Rebecca's birthday party 3 months ago. I wore my new red dress, the one that made me feel 25 again instead of a married woman who'd been filing insurance claims for 8 years. Caleb, my husband, came reluctantly. He always hated parties, preferring to grade math papers or organize his teaching materials for Monday morning classes. "You look beautiful," he said when I emerged from our bedroom, but his smile seemed tired. We'd been married 7 years, and lately, everything felt routine, predictable, safe in a way that made me restless. The party was everything I needed. Music, laughter, people telling me how amazing I looked. I posted 3 photos on Instagram within the first hour, each one getting more likes than the last. The comments flooded in. Queen energy. Stunning as always. Where did you get that dress? That's when Jasper appeared beside me. Jasper Linton was my boss at Meridian Insurance, 37, divorced, and the kind of man who made every conversation feel like flirting. He had this way of leaning in when he talked, making you feel like the most important person in the room. "Having fun?" he asked, his hand briefly touching my lower back as he reached for a drink. "The best," I said, feeling giddy from the attention and 2 glasses of wine. "You know," Jasper said, his voice low enough that only I could hear, "you're wasted in that cubicle. You should be running the whole department." I laughed, probably too loud. "Tell that to corporate." "Maybe I will," he said, and then, I still don't know why I didn't stop him. His hand came down in a playful slap across my backside. Not hard, not violent, but unmistakably inappropriate. Unmistakably crossing a line. I should have been angry. I should have stepped away. Instead, I laughed and said, "Jasper," in that tone women use when they're pretending to be scandalized but actually enjoying the attention. Across the room, I saw Caleb watching. His face went completely blank, that expression he got when he was doing complex calculations in his head, except this time he was calculating something about us. "Kenia," he said when I found him later, "we need to talk." "About what?" I asked, though I knew exactly what. "About your boss putting his hands on you in front of everyone." "Oh my God, Caleb, it was nothing. He was just being playful. You're making this weird." "I'm making it weird?" His voice stayed level, but I could see the muscle in his jaw twitching. "He slapped your ass at a party and you laughed about it. Because it was funny, because it was harmless, because not everything has to be some big dramatic moment." I was getting louder, and people were starting to look. "Maybe if you weren't so uptight all the time, you'd understand that people can just have fun." Caleb stared at me for a long moment. Then he said, "I'll be in the car," and walked away. I stayed at the party for another 2 hours, posting more photos and collecting more validation. In one picture, Jasper and I were laughing together, his arm around my shoulders. I captioned it, "When your boss knows how to have a good time, some people need to lighten up." The comments came fast. "Yas, girl. Live your best life." "Your husband looks thrilled in the background." That last comment made me look closer at the photo. There was Caleb, barely visible in the background, holding his car keys and looking at us with an expression I'd never seen before. Not angry, not hurt, something colder, something calculating. When I got home, he was already in bed, reading. He didn't look up when I came in. "Are you seriously going to pout about this?" I asked. "I'm not pouting," he said, still not looking at me. "I'm thinking." "About what?" "About whether my wife respects me enough to maintain basic boundaries with other men." "Oh, please, you're being ridiculous. It was one tiny moment that meant nothing." He finally looked at me then. "To you, maybe, but it meant something to everyone else at that party, including him. "You're paranoid." "Maybe," he said and went back to his book. The next morning, I found him at his laptop in the kitchen, typing something into a spreadsheet. When he saw me coming, he minimized the window. "What are you working on?" I asked. "School stuff," he said, but his tone was different. Careful. I made coffee and checked my phone. The party photos had gotten even more attention overnight. My follow account had gone up by 30 people. The validation felt like a drug. At work on Monday, Jasper called me into his office. "Hope I didn't get you in trouble with the husband," he said with that grin that made me forget I was married. "Caleb's just traditional," I said. "He doesn't understand how modern workplaces operate." "Some men can't handle confident women," Jasper said. "It threatens them." I nodded, feeling understood in a way I hadn't felt at home in months. "Exactly." "You know," he said, leaning back in his chair, "I meant what I said about you being wasted in your current position. I'm putting together a proposal for a new senior coordinator role. Interested?" "Seriously?" "Dead serious. You've got the skills, the personality, the look for client-facing work." His eyes traveled over me in a way that should have made me uncomfortable, but instead made me feel powerful. "We should discuss it over dinner sometime, away from the office politics." I should have said no. I should have suggested a lunch meeting with HR present. Instead, I heard myself saying, "That sounds great." That evening, Caleb was quiet during dinner. He ate his pasta methodically, occasionally glancing at his phone. "How was work?" he asked. "Good," I said. "Really good, actually. Jasper thinks I'm ready for a promotion." "Does he now?" "You could try being happy for me." "I am happy for you," he said, but his tone suggested otherwise. "What kind of promotion?" "Senior coordinator, more client interaction, better pay, real responsibility." "Congratulations," he said, and it sounded genuine enough that I relaxed. "We're going to discuss the details over dinner this week. He wants to go over the proposal properly." Caleb's fork paused halfway to his mouth. "Dinner." "A business dinner, Caleb. God, you really don't trust me at all, do you?" "I trust you," he said quietly. "It's him I don't trust." "That's your problem, not mine. I'm not going to limit my career because you're insecure." He nodded slowly and went back to eating, but I noticed he took his phone with him when he went to the bathroom, and when he came back, he seemed to be thinking about something else entirely. That night, I posted a photo of my work outfit with the caption, "Dressing for the job you want, not the job you have. Big things coming." The likes poured in, but when I checked Caleb's activity, he hadn't liked or commented. In fact, when I looked closer, I realized he hadn't liked any of my posts in over a week. I was about to ask him about it when I noticed his laptop was open on the kitchen counter. The spreadsheet was visible, rows and rows of dates, times, and what looked like my initials. I moved closer to get a better look, but the screen went dark, password protected. "Caleb," I called, but he was in the shower. I tried a few obvious passwords: our anniversary, his birthday, my birthday. Nothing worked. When he came out of the bathroom, I was sitting on the bed, arms crossed. "What's the spreadsheet for?" "What spreadsheet?" "The one with my initials all over it. The one you password protected." He looked at me for a long moment. "Just keeping track of things." "What things?" "Things that matter to me." "That's not an answer." "It's the only answer you're getting tonight," he said, and something in his voice made me not push further. But as I lay awake that night, listening to his steady breathing beside me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something fundamental had shifted. The way he looked at me, the way he spoke to me, it was like he was seeing me clearly for the first time in years. And for some reason, that terrified me more than I wanted to admit. The dinner with Jasper happened on a Thursday. I chose my outfit carefully, professional but flattering, the kind of dress that said, "Promote me," without saying inappropriate. I posted a mirror selfie before leaving. "Business dinner tonight. Ready to level up." Caleb was grading papers when I left. He looked up long enough to say, "Have a good evening." But his tone was neutral, polite, like I was a stranger. The restaurant Jasper chose was intimate, dim lighting, small tables, the kind of place where conversation stayed private. He was already there when I arrived, having ordered wine. "You look incredible," he said, standing to pull out my chair. "Thank you," I said, feeling that familiar rush of appreciation. When was the last time Caleb had complimented my appearance without me fishing for it? We talked about the promotion for maybe 20 minutes before the conversation shifted to more personal topics. Jasper told me about his divorce, how his ex-wife had never understood his ambition. I found myself sharing things about my marriage that I'd never said out loud, how routine everything had become, how Caleb seemed more interested in his students than in me. "You're too vibrant to be stuck in a boring relationship," Jasper said, refilling my wine glass. "Life's too short to settle for comfortable." His hand covered mine across the table. I should have pulled away. Instead, I let it stay there, enjoying the electric feeling of being wanted. "I should probably head home," I said around 10, though I didn't want to leave. "Of course," he said. "But Kenia, this was really nice. We should do it again soon." In the parking lot, he walked me to my car. When I turned to say goodbye, he was closer than I expected. His hand touched my cheek, and for a moment I thought he might kiss me. Part of me wanted him to. "See you Monday," he said instead, but his fingers lingered on my face for a beat too long. I drove home feeling alive in a way I hadn't felt in years. Caleb was already asleep when I got in, or pretending to be. I slipped into bed beside him, my heart still racing from the evening. The next morning, I posted a photo of my dinner, just the table setting and wine glasses. Sometimes the best business meetings happen after hours. Grateful for mentors who see potential. The response was immediate and enthusiastic. My friends loved it. My co-workers liked it. Even my mother commented, "Living your best life, sweetheart." But when I checked who had viewed my Instagram story, I noticed Caleb's name was there. He'd seen it, but he hadn't said anything. At breakfast, he was reading something on his phone. "How was dinner?" he asked without looking up. "Great, really productive. I think the promotion is going to happen." "That's wonderful," he said, and his tone was so carefully neutral that it made my skin crawl. "Are you okay? You seem distant." "I'm fine," he said. "Just tired." But he wasn't fine. I could feel him watching me differently, like he was taking notes on everything I said and did. When I left for work, he was at his laptop again, typing into that same spreadsheet. At the office, Jasper was all smiles and meaningful glances. He stopped by my desk 3 times before lunch, each time finding an excuse to touch my shoulder or lean close enough that I could smell his cologne. "How are you feeling about everything?" he asked during his 3rd visit. "Good," I said, aware that my co-workers were watching. "Really optimistic." "Excellent. We should celebrate properly. Maybe this weekend." I hesitated. A weekend meetup felt different from a business dinner, more dangerous, more exciting. "I'll think about it," I said. That afternoon, I got a call from HR. Linda Reeves, the director, wanted to see me. "Kenia," she said when I sat down in her office, "I need to address something that's come to my attention." My stomach dropped. "Okay." "A photo from last weekend's party has been circulating. A client forwarded it to me, asking about our company's professional standards." She turned her computer screen toward me. There it was, the photo of Jasper's hand on my backside, my laughing face, Caleb's expression in the background. "This is unfortunate," Linda said. "Mr. Linton is your direct supervisor, and this creates the appearance of impropriety." "It was completely innocent," I said quickly. "Just a joke between friends." "I'm sure it was, but perception matters, especially with clients. I need you to be more mindful of how your social media presence reflects on the company." "Of course," I said. "Absolutely." "Good. And Kenia, Perhaps keep your interactions with Mr. Linton strictly professional going forward. I nodded and left her office feeling humiliated and angry. At home that evening, I vented to Caleb about the unfairness of it all. They're making a big deal out of nothing, I said. It's 2023, for God's sake. People can have fun at parties. Maybe they have a point, Caleb said quietly. Excuse me? Maybe posting photos of your boss touching you wasn't the best judgment call. I stared at him. Are you seriously taking their side? I'm not taking anyone's side. I'm just saying that actions have consequences. What's that supposed to mean? It means that when you put something on social media, it becomes permanent. It becomes part of your reputation. And reputations matter. His voice was still calm, still measured, but there was something underneath it that made me defensive. My reputation is fine, thank you very much. Maybe if you supported me instead of judging me, this wouldn't be such a big deal. I do support you, he said, but I can't support choices that hurt you, or hurt us. Hurt us? How does me having fun at a party hurt us? Because it makes me look like a fool, Kenia. Because it makes people think I can't protect my own marriage. Oh, so this is about your ego. No, he said, and for the first time in the conversation, his voice had an edge. This is about respect and boundaries, and the fact that you seem to have forgotten we're married. That's ridiculous. Is it? When was the last time you posted a photo of us together? When was the last time you mentioned me in a positive way on social media? When was the last time you acted like you were proud to be my wife instead of embarrassed by it? I opened my mouth to argue, but nothing came out. Because when I thought about it, I couldn't remember. That's what I thought, he said, and went back to his laptop. That night, I lay in bed scrolling through my Instagram posts from the past few months. He was right. I was barely in any of them. And when he was usually in the background, looking uncomfortable or out of place. But instead of feeling guilty, I felt angry. Why should I have to dim my light to make him comfortable? Why should I limit myself because he couldn't keep up? I posted a new photo, a selfie from earlier that day with the caption, "When loyalty becomes boring, humor helps. Some people need to learn the difference between confidence and disrespect." The likes came immediately. My friends rallied around me. Yes, Queen. Don't let anyone dim your shine. Some people are just jealous of your energy. But in the morning, I noticed something that made my blood run cold. Caleb had screenshot my post. I could see it in his recently opened files when he left his phone on the kitchen counter. Why did you screenshot my Instagram post? I asked. Did I? He said, not looking up from his coffee. Yes, you did. I saw it in your photos. He said, like he was thinking about something else entirely. Caleb, what are you doing? What do you mean? The spreadsheets, the screenshots, the weird questions. What are you planning? He looked at me then, really looked at me, and his expression was completely unreadable. I'm not planning anything, Kenia. I'm just paying attention. To what? To everything, he said, and something in his voice made me shiver. That weekend, Jasper texted me. Still on for celebrating. I know a great little place outside town. I stared at the message for a long time. Caleb was in his study with the door closed, probably working on more of his mysterious documentation. The house felt suffocating. Yes, I typed back. Let's do it. The place Jasper chose was an hour outside town, a cozy bed and breakfast with a restaurant that felt like a secret. As I drove there Saturday evening, I told myself this was still just business, still just mentorship, still just harmless fun. But I'd chosen my outfit too carefully for it to be harmless. And I'd told Caleb I was having dinner with my college roommate Sarah, a lie that came so easily it scared me. Jasper was waiting in the bar, looking relaxed in jeans and a button-down that brought out his eyes. He stood when he saw me, and his smile was different from his office smile. Warmer, more intimate. You found it, he said, kissing my cheek in greeting. His lips lingered just a moment too long. Barely, I said, laughing. This place is really hidden. That's the point, he said, and the way he said it made my pulse quicken. We had dinner and too much wine. The conversation flowed easier than it ever had with Caleb lately. Jasper listened when I talked, asked follow-up questions, made me feel fascinating and witty and alive. Your husband doesn't know how lucky he is, he said as we shared dessert. We're different people than we used to be, I said, the wine making me more honest than I should have been. People grow apart. It happens. His hand found mine across the table again. The question is whether you're brave enough to admit when something isn't working anymore. It's not that simple. We have a history, a life together. History is just that, history. What matters is what makes you happy now. When dinner ended, he walked me to my car again. This time, when he moved closer, I didn't step back. Kenia, he said softly, his hand cupping my face. We shouldn't, I whispered, but I didn't move away. Says who? He asked, and then he kissed me. It was soft at first, tentative, giving me a chance to pull away. When I didn't, it deepened. His hands tangled in my hair, and for a moment I forgot everything except the feeling of being wanted this desperately. When we broke apart, I was breathing hard. This is crazy, I said. The best things usually are, he replied. Come upstairs with me. I should have said no. I should have gotten in my car and driven home to my husband. Instead, I heard myself saying, okay. His room was on the second floor, overlooking the gardens. He poured wine from a bottle he'd brought up earlier, and we sat on the couch by the window. No pressure, he said. We can just talk if that's what you want. But talking wasn't what I wanted anymore. I wanted to feel desired. I wanted to feel alive. I wanted to forget about spreadsheets and screenshots and the careful way my husband had been watching me. What happened next felt inevitable, like a wave I'd been swimming toward for months, finally crashed over me. Jasper's hands, his mouth, the way he whispered my name like it was something precious. It was everything my marriage hadn't been in years. Afterward, lying in his arms, I felt a mixture of exhilaration and terror. I should go home, I said. Should you? He asked, his fingers tracing patterns on my shoulder. Or should you stay here with someone who actually appreciates you? I stayed until Sunday morning, telling myself I'd deal with the consequences later. Jasper ordered room service, and we ate breakfast in bed like we were on vacation instead of having an affair. This doesn't have to be complicated, he said as I finally got dressed. We're adults. We can handle this maturely. I nodded, but my hands were shaking as I applied lipstick in his bathroom mirror. The drive home felt endless. I rehearsed explanations in my head. Sarah had too much to drink, so I stayed over. We talked so late that it seemed safer not to drive. Innocent reasons for an innocent night. But when I walked into my house, Caleb was sitting at the kitchen table with his laptop open and a cup of coffee that looked like it had been sitting there for hours. How was Sarah? He asked without looking up. Good, really good. We talked until really late, so I crashed at her place. He said, still typing. That's nice. I'm glad you had fun. His tone was so normal, so unsuspicious that I almost relaxed. Then he looked up at me, and his eyes were different, sharper. You might want to change clothes before you go anywhere today, he said mildly. You have a stain on your dress. I looked down and saw it, a small wine stain on the hem that I'd somehow missed. Oh, that's from dinner last night. Clumsy me. Right, he said. From dinner. With Sarah. Something in his emphasis made my stomach clench, but his expression remained neutral. I'm going to shower, I said. Good idea, he replied, and went back to his typing. Under the hot water, I scrubbed away the evidence of my night with Jasper, but I couldn't scrub away the guilt, or the excitement, or the way I was already thinking about when I might see him again. Monday at work, Jasper was professional but warm. He stopped by my desk with coffee and a smile that made my colleagues raise eyebrows. How was the rest of your weekend? He asked quietly. Complicated, I said. The best weekends usually are, he replied, echoing his words from Saturday night. That afternoon, he sent me an email about a conference in the next city over, a 2-day event that would require an overnight stay. Interested in representing our department? The email read. I think you'd be perfect for it. I stared at the screen, knowing exactly what he was really asking. A hotel room, 2 nights away from home, 2 nights with him. I typed back, send me the details. At home that evening, I mentioned the conference to Caleb over dinner. It's a great opportunity, I said. Networking, professional development, a chance to represent the company at a higher level. When is it? Next weekend, Friday and Saturday. He nodded thoughtfully. That's good timing. What do you mean? Nothing specific, just good timing. But the way he said it made me feel like he knew something I didn't. That night, I found him in his study with the door locked. When I knocked, he called out, "Just a minute," and I heard the sound of drawers closing and papers shuffling. "What are you working on in there?" I asked when he finally opened the door. "School stuff. Budget planning. Boring administrative things." But over his shoulder, I could see manila folders labeled with dates and what looked like printed emails. "Caleb, what's really going on? You're acting so strange lately." "Am I?" he asked. I hadn't noticed. "Yes, you are. The secretiveness, the locked doors, the weird comments. Just tell me what's wrong." He looked at me for a long moment, and I thought he might actually open up. Then he said, "Nothing's wrong, Kenia. I'm just being more organized about things, more thorough." "Thorough about what?" "About everything that matters to me," he said, and closed the study door between us. That night, I posted a photo of my conference materials with the caption, "Excited for this weekend's professional development opportunity. Sometimes you have to invest in yourself." The comments were supportive as always, but when I checked who had viewed the post, I noticed something troubling. Caleb had viewed it within minutes of me posting it, but he hadn't liked or commented, just observed. I was starting to understand that my husband was building something, collecting something, preparing for something. But I was too caught up in the thrill of my secret to pay attention to the warning signs, too intoxicated by Jasper's attention to notice that Caleb had stopped trying to fight for me and started doing something else entirely, something much more dangerous. Friday morning, I packed carefully for the conference. Professional clothes, but also the lingerie I'd bought specifically for this weekend. Jasper and I were driving separately to maintain appearances, but we'd planned to meet in the hotel bar after checking in. Caleb was unusually helpful as I packed, even carrying my suitcase to the car. "Drive safely," he said, kissing my cheek. "Text me when you get there." "I will," I said, feeling a stab of guilt at his kindness. "And Kenia," he said as I started the engine, "have the weekend you deserve." Something about his phrasing bothered me, but I was already running late. The hotel was beautiful, the kind of place where business conferences felt more like luxury retreats. Jasper had upgraded us to adjoining rooms, a detail that made my pulse race as I checked in. The conference itself was legitimate, real speakers, real networking, real professional development. I attended sessions, took notes, collected business cards, but underneath it all was the electric anticipation of what would happen after hours. Jasper found me during the lunch break. "How are you finding everything?" he asked. "Informative," I said, very aware of my colleagues nearby. "Excellent. I'm particularly interested in the evening session on strategic partnerships," he said with a slight smile. "I think it could be very educational." That evening, after the official sessions ended, I changed into the dress I'd brought specifically for dinner with Jasper. I posted a mirror selfie with the caption, "Conference dinner tonight, grateful for opportunities to grow and learn." The likes came immediately, including one from my mother. "Beautiful as always, sweetheart." But when I checked, Caleb hadn't liked it. He'd viewed it, but no heart, no comment. Dinner with Jasper was perfect. He'd chosen a restaurant away from the conference hotel, somewhere private where we could be ourselves instead of playing professional roles. "You've seemed different this week," he said over wine. "More confident, more sure of yourself." "I feel different," I admitted, like I'm finally living my life instead of just going through the motions. "That's what happens when you stop settling for less than you deserve," he said, reaching across to touch my hand. After dinner, we walked back to the hotel slowly, taking the long way through the downtown area. When we reached my room, he followed me inside without either of us discussing it. This time, there was no hesitation, no guilt, no voice in my head telling me to stop. There was just him and me and the feeling of being completely alive. We spent the night together, and I slept better than I had in months. In the morning, we ordered room service and ate breakfast in bed like a real couple. "I could get used to this," I said, curled against his chest. "So could I," he replied, kissing the top of my head. "We should do this more often." "How? We can't exactly have conferences every weekend." "There are ways," he said. "Late meetings, business trips. My apartment is always available." The idea thrilled and terrified me in equal measure. "That seems risky." "Only if we get careless," he said, "and we're not careless people." Saturday's sessions felt endless. I sat through presentations on market trends and customer retention while thinking about Jasper's hands on my skin. Every time our eyes met across the conference room, I felt that familiar flutter of excitement. That evening, I posted a group photo from the conference reception. Amazing weekend of learning and networking, ready to take these insights back to the team. In the photo, Jasper and I were standing near each other, but not touching, looking perfectly professional. But I could see the intimacy in our body language, the way we leaned slightly toward each other, the shared secret in our smiles. We spent Saturday night together again, this time with even less pretense. We were having an affair, and we both knew it, and neither of us was interested in stopping. Sunday morning, as I packed to leave, Jasper sat on my bed watching me. "This doesn't have to end here," he said. "I know," I replied, though I wasn't sure how to continue it at home. I meant what I said about my apartment being available. Anytime you need space to think, or just want to be with someone who appreciates you. I nodded, folding my conference materials around the lingerie I'd worn for him. The drive home felt different from the drive there. I wasn't nervous anymore. I was exhilarated. I'd crossed a line and discovered I liked being on the other side of it. Caleb was in the kitchen when I arrived, cooking what looked like an elaborate dinner. "Welcome home," he said, kissing my cheek. "How was the conference?" "Really good. Productive. I learned a lot." "I'm sure you did," he said, and again, something in his tone made me look at him more closely. "What's all this?" I asked, gesturing to the dinner preparation. "I thought we should celebrate your professional development," he said. "Plus, I had a productive weekend myself." "Oh? What did you do?" "Organized some things, caught up on projects I'd been putting off, made some important phone calls." He served dinner with a bottle of wine, and for a moment it felt like old times. We talked about the conference, my career goals, his students. Normal married couple conversation, but I kept noticing little things. The way he watched my face when I talked about the weekend. The way he asked specific questions about timing and locations. The way he seemed to be memorizing my answers. After dinner, he excused himself to his study again. I tried the door and found it locked, as usual. I was getting ready for bed when I heard him on the phone in there, his voice low but intense. I pressed my ear to the door but could only make out fragments. Documented everything. Timeline is clear. Ready to proceed. When he came to bed, I pretended to be asleep. He lay beside me in the dark, and I could feel him thinking, planning, preparing for something I couldn't quite grasp. Monday at work, Jasper was all smiles and meaningful glances. He stopped by my desk with coffee and a note hidden under the cup. "Thank you for an incredible weekend. When can we do it again?" I wrote back, "Soon, I'll figure something out." But as the week went on, I noticed changes at home that made me nervous. Caleb had become almost aggressively helpful, doing my laundry, organizing my things, even cleaning out my car. When I asked why, he said he was just trying to be a better husband. "I've been thinking about what you said," he told me Wednesday night, "about me being too traditional, too uptight. Maybe you're right. Maybe I need to be more understanding of modern relationships." "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe I've been too controlling. Maybe I should trust you more, give you more space to be yourself." It should have been a relief, but something about his sudden change of heart felt wrong. Too convenient, too calculated. Thursday evening, Jasper texted, "Working late tonight, want to keep me company?" I looked at Caleb, who was grading papers at the kitchen table, completely absorbed in his work. "I think I'll run some errands tonight," I said. "Maybe stop by the office to catch up on a few things." "That's fine," he said without looking up. "Take your time." I drove to Jasper's apartment with my heart pounding. This was the first time I'd been there, the first time we'd been together in his actual space rather than a hotel room. His apartment was exactly what I'd expected. Modern, masculine, expensive. The kind of place that made our suburban house feel small and outdated. "I've been thinking about you all week," he said, pulling me into his arms as soon as the door closed. "Me too," I whispered against his mouth. We made love on his couch, then moved to his bedroom, then back to the kitchen for wine and cheese and more touching. I felt like I was in a movie, living someone else's glamorous life. "I should go home," I said around midnight, though I didn't want to leave. "Should you?" he asked, the same question he'd asked at the hotel. "Your husband seems pretty understanding these days." "What do you mean?" "Just that he doesn't seem to be keeping very close tabs on you. Maybe he's finally giving you the space you need." I thought about Caleb's recent behavior, his sudden helpfulness and understanding. "Maybe he is," I said. "So stay," Jasper said, kissing my neck. "Stay the night. Tell him you fell asleep at a friend's house." I should have said no. I should have gone home to my husband. But the wine and the attention and the feeling of living dangerously made me reckless. "Okay," I said, "I'll stay." I texted Caleb, "Staying at Mum's tonight. She's having a rough evening and needs company. Don't wait up." He texted back immediately, "Of course. Give her my love. See you tomorrow." No questions, no suspicion, no anger, just understanding. And somehow that scared me more than if he'd demanded I come home immediately. I woke up in Jasper's bed Friday morning, feeling like I was living in a dream. He made coffee, and we shared breakfast on his balcony, talking about work and weekend plans like we were a real couple. "I could get used to this," I said, echoing my words from the hotel weekend. "So could I," he replied. "Maybe we should make it a regular thing." "What do you mean?" "I mean, maybe it's time to stop pretending this is just casual. Maybe it's time to make some real decisions about what you want." The suggestion hung in the air between us, thrilling and terrifying. Was he asking me to leave Caleb? Was I ready for that? "I should get home," I said, avoiding the question. "I need to shower and change before work." "Of course," he said, but I could see disappointment in his eyes. The drive home felt longer than usual. I rehearsed explanations for why I was coming home so late, why I hadn't come home at all the night before. But when I pulled into my driveway, Caleb's car was gone. He'd already left for school. I let myself in through the front door and headed straight for the shower. It wasn't until I was getting dressed that I noticed something odd. My jewelry box had been moved. Not much, just a few inches to the left of where I always kept it. Then I saw that my dresser drawers weren't quite closed properly, like someone had been looking through them and hadn't quite put everything back exactly right. "Caleb?" I called, even though I knew he wasn't home. I checked his study. The door was unlocked for once, and when I looked inside, I saw filing cabinets I'd never noticed before. New ones, with labels I couldn't quite read from the doorway. My phone buzzed with a text from Jasper. "Last night was incredible. Can't wait to do it again soon." I deleted the message and tried to focus on getting ready for work, but something felt off. The house felt different, like someone had been examining every corner of it while I was gone. At work, I threw myself into my tasks, trying to shake the uneasy feeling. Jasper stopped by my desk twice, both times with legitimate work questions, but with that underlying intimacy that made my pulse race. "How are you feeling about everything?" he asked during his second visit. "Good," I said, though I wasn't sure that was true. "Really good." "Excellent. I was thinking we might grab dinner tonight. I have some ideas about your career development that I'd like to discuss." "That sounds great," I said, even though part of me thought I should go home and figure out what Caleb had been doing in my absence. That evening, I texted Caleb, "Working late tonight. Don't wait up for dinner." He responded, "No problem. I'll be working late myself. Lots of projects to finish up." Dinner with Jasper was perfect. Secluded restaurant, excellent food, flowing conversation. He gently pressed, "This couldn't stay casual forever. I'd have to choose my future." I agreed it was time, though leaving Caleb felt impossible. We returned to his place. I texted Caleb I was at Mom's again. His reply, "Of course. Love you," twisted my guilt, but I buried it. We made love desperately, whispering we were falling in love. Saturday blurred into lazy morning sex and delivery food, avoiding reality. I left around 4, driving home full of possibilities. Turning onto my street, I froze. A locksmith van in the driveway. A man installed a new deadbolt. My key refused to turn. Caleb opened the door, calm. Security upgrade. The house was solely in his name. Pre-marriage purchase, never retitled. He'd tracked my absences. Only 3 nights home in 2 weeks. "Your things are boxed. Pick them up tomorrow at noon." He closed the door. A same-day locksmith sticker confirmed. This was planned, scheduled, precise, not rage, but resolution. I sat in my car, shaking, realizing Caleb had solved me like an equation. No anger, just finality. My only option was Jasper's, but even that felt like surrender to the life I'd chosen over my marriage. I drove to Jasper's in shock. Caleb had changed the locks. The house was solely in his name, bought before our marriage, never retitled. "You haven't been home enough to live here," his note said. Jasper offered his couch indefinitely. Sunday noon, 4 neat boxes waited on the step. My clothes, books, jewelry, nothing shared. A bank account held exactly half our savings, calculated to the cent. His note was clinical. "I'll contact you through my attorney." Monday at work, a process server delivered divorce papers packed with screenshots, texts, surveillance photos, hotel receipts, credit card trails. HR suspended me pending investigation into my inappropriate relationship with Supervisor Jasper, potential harassment or favoritism violation. Jasper was suspended too. We realized Caleb had tracked everything for months. Joint finances, PI photos, perhaps even location data. That evening, Caleb's sister Lynn texted, "Coffee tomorrow, alone." Jasper warned it was a trap, but curiosity won. I needed to know how deep this methodical dismantling went. Lying awake in Jasper's bed, I understood. Caleb hadn't raged. He'd built an airtight case. The locked door wasn't impulse. It was the first calculated step in ending us cleanly, legally, forever. At Starbucks, Lynn met me reluctantly, showing months of texts from Caleb, probing about my happiness, work, marriage, then directly asking if I was having an affair. She'd defended me then, now she knew better. She slid over an envelope, a USB with Caleb's complete evidence, photos, videos, audio from a legal car recorder, PI surveillance, financial trails, location data. A note gave me until Friday. Settle quietly or face public exposure. Lynn revealed more. My boss Jasper wasn't divorced, just separated. His wife Patricia, a family law attorney, now knew everything. Caleb had sent her copies. She'd filed for divorce and sued me for $200,000 in alienation of affection. Jasper was served simultaneously. At his apartment, he admitted the complicated truth. Reconciliation had been possible. His pause confirmed he'd have ended us if she'd wanted him back. I chose settlement, uncontested divorce, no alimony, clean break. Caleb's final note wished me happiness elsewhere. No bitterness, just closure. 6 months later, in a new city and job, I live honestly, finding worth in work, not validation. The locked door wasn't rage, it was deliberate finality. Sometimes truth arrives as silence behind a deadbolt, forcing you to rebuild on reality.